Hey, you're on Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. I am Dr. Canute White. Usually we come to you from Miramar in Florida, but I am somewhere in New York. Well, in effect, I'm in Bronx, the Bronx, New York. It's not a nice place to chill. I'm from Jamaica and Florida is tropical. And when I come into the Bronx, wow, I tell you, it's a challenge. It's not a nice place to chill. The planet words there, right? But we have a very interesting guest here this afternoon, this morning, this evening, wherever you're viewing from, wherever you're listening from, on your favorite podcast platform. We know how the world stays, the time differences, and so on. But you're gonna enjoy this episode. We'll be talking to a very interesting guest, right? I soon introduce him to you. We'll be talking about conflict, the mistakes that we make, right? Conflicts in organizations, in families, in communities, and most importantly, in self. I'll be talking to Jerry about that. So I'd like to let in Jerry Fu into the studio. Jerry, how do you pronounce your last name? I have a problem with last name.
No, you did great. Fu is correct. Good job, Dr. White.
I get it. Another A for me.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Jerry Fu, it's nice to have you on Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast, and we'll be talking about a few things. But let me find out, who is Jerry Fu? Let me start there.
Sure. Yeah. I wear many hats, sometimes too many. I am a son of immigrants. I am a pharmacist. I am a conflict resolution coach. I am an amateur chef. I am a musician. I play piano and guitar, just not at the same time. Salsa dancer and, restaurant lover, trying new restaurants lover. So,
Right.
many, many things. Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, we talked about jerk chicken earlier on outside
Yeah.
of studio, and you are a cook. You love to cook. You deal with that, right? Tell
Oh,
me,
yeah.
tell me, are you good at doing jerk chicken?
No, I
All
need
right,
lessons
that's
from
cool.
real,
That's
how
cool.
to make real jerk chicken, not like some of the restaurants here that try
Yeah,
to say they make jerk chicken, but not real Jamaican jerk chicken.
yeah. I got you. I got you. I got you. No problem. Have you gone to Jamaica before?
I
For
have
eating
not.
something?
I
Okay.
have not, but give me travel tips as soon as this pandemic goes away. Let me
Okay. Hurry,
let me
hurry,
try it.
and tell me about it, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, tell me about your childhood. I love to hear
Yeah.
about you.
No, it's my parents just did the best they could to give me a fun and carefree childhood. Really, grateful for my mom. She, finance. She never let us worry about finances.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I grew up in Wisconsin. A lot of snow, a lot of cold weather. I got to go sledding. My parents had to go to work, so I got the better end of it. And yeah, I miss those days of making snowmen. I can't do that here in Houston now. Making
Oh, you're
snowmen
okay.
and
That's where you're at. Cool, cool.
yeah.
You know, I often see the United States as many countries coming together
Hmm.
because each state is like a country.
Hmm.
You
It
understand?
is.
Wow. But
Yeah.
it's a wonderful place.
Mhm.
Jerry, your childhood.
Yeah.
You talk about your childhood being not that bad, and that's fine. But
Hmm.
are there any inspirational messages from your childhood? Anything that you'd like to share that will bring some inspiration to others?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the most fond, years of my life was my third grade. Actually, my teacher that year was a gentleman named Mr. Stuart Bell, and he was a Vietnam vet, and he would put kids in boot camp, if they were acting up, and you can't do that now because you'll get sued, right?
Yeah.
But I loved his sense of humor. I loved his love for science, and he really inspired me to really want to be a good student and learn really, because he just brought such a great sense of humor to his job and made us laugh and really, when you were on his good side, he made you want to learn or inspired you to learn. And
Yeah, I
so
like that.
I love that. So yeah, I think if I had to give a message from my childhood, hey, pay attention to the teachers that really you really enjoy,
Mhm.
and then just if you're intentional, they could be lifelong friends. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I would tell people.
yeah. I'd like to say hi to Miss Nola Hill. Miss Nola Hill, Jerry, she was my fourth grade teacher,
Hmm.
and she's still alive. We are still communicating. Yeah?
Wonderful.
She pushed me hard though, and
Yeah.
and I appreciate her for that. I Miss Hill, still alive, still going. I love it, love it. Okay,
Hmm.
Jerry, if you could talk to your younger self,
Hmm.
what would you say to your younger self at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. The first is to let go of people who insist on disagreeing with you, no matter how strong a case you make. And I'll give a quick example. So, at one point in high school, there was an acquaintance who basically kind of made fun of my stance about the physical fitness merits of dancing and social dancing and things like that. And he's just like, what's the how much of a workout can you get? Just like like throwing your arms and
Yeah.
legs around for like half an hour. And I just remember like losing my composure about
Oh,
no, like dancing is awesome, like you can't. And I remember now I look at that and I think to myself, why did I waste so much energy, trying to convince a guy whose mind was already made up, so yeah, that's one thing I'll tell myself is to say, hey, if you're secure in what you love and what you do, it's okay for
yeah.
people to disagree with you, right? They're the ones that are missing out. So that's the first thing I would tell myself.
Wow.
The second
Yeah.
would be, hey, uh, read more books, because I say this because in high school, right, I all we did was read all sorts of Victorian literature. They all had the same
Oh,
plot
yeah.
line, and you just hated books after that. You're just like, this isn't fun for me. And so it took many years for me to come back around and realize there's a lot of useful and interesting and fun literature out there. And yeah,
You
embrace
know,
that. Like,
it's funny though, Jerry, because
mhm,
you see, we could say a lot of things to our younger self now. You and
mhm,
I,
yeah,
most of us
yeah,
as adults.
yeah.
But is it that we say to our children, hey, is what I would want to say to my younger self. So I'm saying
Mhm,
it to you. What
mhm.
do you think about that? To ensure that they don't fall into the same trap.
No, it's tough. I mean, you mean well for your kids, I
Yeah.
think. And I know I jokingly say, even if I one day have kids and
Yeah.
I know I have all these great life lessons I want to share with them, they're going to be like, no, you're dad, you're uncool. Like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Right. And, in that moment, you just have to trust that,
Yeah.
after enough time, they're going to come back around and realize, you know what? Yeah, my dad wasn't perfect, and
You're right.
there's a lot he got right. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. It's a generational thing. We know, right?
Hmm.
It's a generational thing. But
Yeah.
I what got you into coaching though? Because you appear to be a good coach, conflict management.
Thanks.
What gets you into that?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, coaching was the thing I realized I wish I had had when I was trying to learn to be a better leader. And so, um, leadership is what I tell people. It saved my career because until I went through a program that helped kind of light a fire and instill some confidence in my own abilities and mindset to really to grow into an effective leader. I just sat in limiting beliefs, and I would just beat myself up needlessly. And so
Yeah.
after enough drama in my day job as a pharmacist, just trying to maintain gainful employment, I
Yeah.
said, you know what, I really love teaching these leadership workshops, and what if I made a career out of it? So yeah, I got a taste of facilitating workshops. I liked it a lot, and it wasn't until I believed that I could make a career out of it that I decided to finally file my LLC and get the website up and meet people for
Oh, cool.
podcasts and tell them about my business. So here we
Yeah.
go.
And you'll have an opportunity to do that some more later. But
Absolutely.
what separates you though from the other coaches? Why
Yeah.
should we say, "Oh, Jerry's the best"?
Yeah. I need to be able to trumpet that, right? Number one, most of my clients tell me that I'm just really good at asking questions. Like
Okay.
they're like, Jerry knows how to, engage a situation and draw out the real issues that are, that my clients are struggling with. Another is that I read a lot of books now, right? And, I can pull from a lot of useful
Oh,
information
cool.
that may be relevant to your situation. And so there's just like this giant library that I have on quick recall because I have to apply it in my own life as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also, I technically, my day job serves as my leadership lab. And so, not only am I reading these books and telling you about them, I'm able to, experiment with it on my own and share with you how I've applied this and, give you some real specific examples to work through. So it is also deeply personal. I had to evict a roommate, right? So unless I have some effective conflict resolution techniques, I'm not going to be able to evict him. I had to fire, several people, and having been fired myself, right? There's a level of empathy there that I think, a lot of people would want in a coach. So yeah, those are some things that I think hopefully people say, you know what, of all the coaches out there, I want Jerry.
You better say that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Jerry. I often say, and it has become a cliche, I say in my episode, our adversities are not for us, it's for others.
Good.
And more as I talk to my guests, I realize that is to be true, right? There's a truism in that, and that's true. What is conflict, though? What this conflict thing? What is it?
Yeah, let's define the problem. A simple definition I usually start with is that there are broken expectations at some point, right? There were expectations, whether they were seen or unseen. Someone stepped over a line, and now you have a conflict, right? Whether it's forgetting to take your shoes off in an Asian household, right? Or you don't clean up your dishes after you finish eating, and your roommate's upset. Or even if you use the wrong greeting, right? Like some people want to bow to me just because I'm Asian. And it's like, okay, are you educated or are you condescending, right? Now, all of a sudden, like all it takes is a miscommunication. Oh, I said something, but they heard something different. And now you have a conflict.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. Yeah, that can happen. That can happen. It's really rare like that. But Jerry, when I sit and they say you cut your tent, you put your foot, but I try, if you're sitting at my left, I try not to show you my shoe bottom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a personal thing. It's not a cultural thing for me. Because I figure if I do that, it might create a conflict with somebody. Hey, why are you doing this? I mean, have some respect. So these things happen.
Yeah. That's all it takes. Personal preferences, right? And all of a sudden, boom, you didn't meet my personal preferences. Now I'm upset with you. That's all it takes.
You, right?
Yeah.
Hey, but what I like to find out though, people make mistakes as it relates to conflict, right? And what are some of these common mistakes that people make?
Yeah, great question. The first is avoidance, thinking that the problem will go away on its own. That's the first problem, because I've done that plenty of times. Believe me, I speak from experience. When if say a technician mistypes a prescription and I say, well, maybe it's a one-time mistake. Maybe I'll just fix it now. And I just don't want to upset her. But maybe she gets offended at the fact that I'm trying to help her, or maybe I come across as condescending. And so let me just fix it this one time. But then it happens again, right? And now I'm fixing her problem again, but she doesn't realize that I'm fixing it for her. She just thinks she's doing a perfectly fine job, and hoping that she'll figure it out, realizing it's like, no, that doesn't work. So that's the first one. And the second sub part of that is that overcompensation is another common mistake, right? Because now I'm working 2 jobs for the price of one, right? And now I'm getting burnt out because now I'm tired because I have to cover her mistakes, and I'm being worn out as the goalie. The second main mistake is charging ahead with no plan, right? They think, I'm tired of feeling frustrated, and I'm tired of feeling resentful. So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to tell them and give them a piece of my mind. And guess what? If you didn't do your homework, you probably didn't know what the real issue is. And so now you have to apologize twice. Number one, for antagonizing people. Number two, looking, foolish, right? And then the third is trying to twist the person's arm into thinking that you're right. That's what a lot of people think, right? Where they're just like, okay, let's say, and I'll give a real life situation. So at one point, a pharmacist I supervised made a medication error. She dispensed the medication to the wrong patient. Like the prescription was meant for one person. The technician typed it under a different profile. She didn't catch it. It got back to us that this mistake was made. And basically I had to sit her down and the technician and just basically sort out exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And I had my own idea of, well, like I'll call her Sarah. Sarah was wrong. Like, and
Right.
she's like, no, Sarah's like, no, the technician made the mistake. And it's like, true or false, Sarah, like you are supposed to catch and fix any mistakes that happen before they leave this pharmacy. Well, yeah. And it's like, well, like, and I lost my temper, right? And
Yeah.
she's like, well,
Yeah.
and I asked her, what are you going to do differently? Well, I'll be more careful. I'm like, no, like you need to be I need much more specific answers. And of course, all she did was just whine and complain and be passive aggressive the next month. She's like, well, is this my fault too? And it's sitting there thinking, oh, like I don't, like if this is how to resolve conflict, I don't want to do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So those are the top three that I see
Okay.
in terms of mistakes with conflict.
Okay. Yeah. You're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I am Dr. Canute White. I'm talking to Jerry Fu. He's in the United States, immigrant like myself, but we are building our new country, Jerry. Right?
Yes,
We love it. We love it. Jerry, it's about tips now, not financial tips you're giving to somebody else.
of course.
But I mean, what are some of the tips that you'd like to give to the audience about resolving conflict effectively?
Yeah. So I'll give you guys two bonus, right? Two ways
Yeah.
of looking at this. So the first is the 5 C's of effective conflict resolution. And the first C is compassion. You have to have compassion for the other person, right? They're human like you. They have feelings like you. They have blind spots like you. So, hey, like just remember, hey, for this purposes of this conversation, we both have 2 eyes. We both can only see so much. Let me make sure, hey, we're on the same team. All right, then let me make sure I take care of my teammate. All right. The second is courage, right? Hey, I have to, set this thing in motion, right? So I can't stay complacent. I have to, pick up the phone or send that text and get that process started. The third is curiosity, right? So in line with compassion, hey, let me get a appreciation for the perspective and their take on things, right? Because now that I'm being a detective of sorts, right now I can kind of really learn what's actually going on. So that's the third C. The fourth is collaboration. Hey, initially we start off, kind of like opposite each other, but now let's shift to the same side of the table, right? Because we're on the same side. We're both working toward a solution. So yeah, how do we, adjust expectations and, put some measures in place so we don't have to have this fight again. And then 5 is closure, right? To believe that a solution is possible, and to trust that is better than staying in your comfort zone. So that's one way of looking at it. The framework that I have on my website also involves 5 steps. The first is to imagine what success would sound like, right? So for some people, it is restoring the relationship to 100%, but other times it may be tying things off, right? You have to evict a roommate, you have to fire somebody. So success just means getting over the finish line in that regard, right? The second is kind of what I mentioned earlier in the previous one, right? 10 seconds of courage. You don't need to be Superman or Wonder Woman. You just need to, push the boulder over the cliff and then don't give yourself a way out, right? Because if you say, oh, well, let me just not send this text. If you think about it too long, you're not going to do it. Third step, script your critical moves, right?
Okay.
Don't just rattle them around in their head, right? Organize them on paper, right? Write them down. And then say, okay, what do I want to make sure I address and what's the logical flow to address these topics? Yeah. And then fourth, rehearse them. Don't just write them down. Practice in front of a mirror, record yourself on a phone, right? Do I have good posture? Do I have the right tone? Do I project confidence? Do I project calmness and composure? Okay, if I don't, well, how would I sound if I did? And then 5, do it. You've prepared too much. You've already done the homework. And you can't afford to tolerate bad behavior any longer. So yeah, follow through.
Oh, those are great tips. That's a lot of money, man.
Absolutely, yeah, giving away a lot.
Giving away a lot. But there's something that we say in psychology, Jerry, as it relates to not self-fulfilling prophecy. We talk about self-serving bias.
Good.
Self-serving bias. And self-serving bias speaks to, if I do it, I'm right. It's right. But if Jerry does it, it's wrong. Where that comes from? Why do we have to be doing that? Well, I mean, I'm just asking you the question, right? Because it also breeds conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And the next time around, you're going to say, but Dr. White, you
Mm-hmm.
do it. So why can't I do it?
Mm. Yeah. I
Well,
mean, we all like to make exceptions for ourselves. We don't like to make exceptions for others, right?
no.
It's like, well, I judge myself by my intentions. I judge them by their actions because I can't know their intentions, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think there's just something instinctive and to our survival to say, well, if I need to do this to survive, then it's okay. But as soon as they do the same thing and it kind of cuts into my money or my inconvenience or other things, all of a sudden, no, like it's my world and you're just living in it.
Yeah, Jerry, I saw some things on your website that was
Mm-hmm.
said, and I want to flesh out some of these things,
Go
right?
for it. Yeah.
I was born, well, was born in the United States. You
Yes.
grew up elsewhere and so
Mm-hmm.
on, family, and
Yeah.
you encountered conflict at work, in
Mm-hmm.
your culture, and
Mm-hmm.
within self.
Yeah.
That comes out more to me, the within self thing. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want, you may explain conflict at work, conflict in culture, and conflict within self.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to unpack that a little bit. So, yeah, when you're at work, right? Um, what my parents told me and didn't necessarily add up, right? Because other cultures are in play, right?
Yeah,
What is true for my parents, unless they're running the company that I'm working for probably doesn't reflect the same culture as my parents. So what my parents tell me would work won't may not. There's no guarantee that it might work here, right? So that's the first thing. The culture, yeah, part of it is expectations, right?
yeah,
The immigrant's definition of success involves getting a lot of money and prestige quickly, right? Because we need to establish some
yeah,
credibility, and we want to be able to have that money that allows for some level of autonomy and flexibility and options, right? And then the conflict within myself, right? I don't even know what I want. Like I thought, I want to get married, and all of a sudden, oh, like I have a spouse who is upset with me over things I didn't realize I would, cause problems with, or I wanted kids, and oh shoot, like now the next 20 years are going to be a big investment, right? Kids are expensive,
At
and
what point are we going? At what point are we going to resolve that conflict within self? Because many of us have
yeah.
that conflict. Hey, I
Mm.
want coffee. No, let me. I don't think I want to. Yeah,
Well, that's a great question. So, what I've learned in my dealings with conflict is that there is healthy conflict and there's unhealthy conflict,
right.
right? So, unhealthy conflict, yeah, you offended somebody, like you didn't shake their hand or you hung up on them, right? All of us like, and you showed disrespect, and now that's now you got to have a fire to put out.
Yeah,
Healthy conflict, though, I believe that the what I need to embrace was that even if you resolve one conflict, like another one's waiting around the corner, because dealing with the small conflict frees you up to deal with the bigger conflict. And so,
okay.
the conflict between my current self and the person I will be in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
That has to be a conflict. That's a good conflict because
Mm,
it's like a business, right? You look at how you're making money now, and you can't guarantee that's going to be the same way you make money in 5 years.
yeah,
There are companies that are successful now and they go obsolete too quickly because they thought, oh, we're done. It's like, no, they didn't address the conflict, right? And so, yeah, I think it's to your point. On one hand, if you're avoiding it and just like not dealing with it, it won't go away. But
yeah,
if you deal with it, the blessing is that when the next one comes along, you'll be more prepared for it.
yeah.
So yeah, it's not that it ever goes away. It's leveraging the blessing that conflict brings.
Mm, interesting. And just to deviate a little with
Go ahead.
stress, right? Stress. You have
Hmm.
new stress and you have distress, and that's good
Hmm.
stress and bad stress.
Hmm.
If you just get a good job, Jerry, paying your money, what you want, you're
Hmm.
gonna be stressed. You just get married, you just
Hmm.
get your dream house, you're gonna be
Hmm.
stressed.
Oh
Good stress,
yeah.
good stress. Then
Yeah.
this stress, but a lot of people don't know that
Yeah.
good things can create a bit of stress because you're basically changing in terms of
Hmm.
the environment and how you deal with situation as you
Hmm.
grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next thing, Jerry,
Hmm.
I'd like to ask, you have said something
Hmm.
as it relates, and it's scrolling across the screen. Those
Hmm.
of you listening on your favorite podcast platform may not be able to see it, but you
Yeah.
say, I don't know how to handle any of it. That's a conflict you were talking
Hmm.
about.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't know where to look for help.
yeah.
What are you saying, and what would be your advice to others as you
Yeah, yeah,
overcome that?
that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, and I think back to moments when I had bad roommates and I didn't know who to talk to, right? Um, I could ask friends for their advice, but you can't necessarily count on that unless they're really coming from a place of experience, right?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, so when I have all these people that say, "Oh, like if your roommate's, messing with your stuff, just confront him," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't like that," right? He might get worse and more passive aggressive, and so that I don't want that. And then like I didn't. This was before Amazon and stuff got big, right? So you just didn't even know what books can you trust, right? You're
yeah,
just like, what literature should I even read? And so, yeah, between having resources available but not knowing what to trust, I think is the bigger problem. And then, yeah, so not knowing and then not knowing where to look. That's basically it, because it's not for a lack of information, but you don't. There's lots of people who claim to be coaches, right? Whom do you trust? Same thing with this, whether it's people or resources.
yeah,
You just don't know which ones to pick. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and then yeah, just feeling helpless because I just didn't want to admit that things are out there. I just wasn't looking for them.
Yeah. Next thing that you have talked about, you have lost
Mhm.
your job because I continually avoid conflict with an upset boss, but getting fired was a wake up call for you.
Mm.
Basically that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Basically, to unpack that, right? I mean, the job I moved to Houston for involved teaching pharmacy students. I was ready to leave my chain pharmacy job, and I didn't have a conventional residency or PhD, so I couldn't get a university job. But a friend was kind enough to help me apply for this teaching job that was now available at her company, and so I convinced them to take a chance on me. And the problem was, number one, I mean, I caused the conflict because I wasn't doing my job well. And I just
Yeah,
didn't want to admit that you can't just give your boss stories as to why you didn't get the job done. Like, that's not what they're paying you for, right? They're paying you to get the job done. And so, after enough of seeing my boss upset with me, I just said, you know what, I just don't even want to engage with
yeah,
this. I'm just going to go to my office and mind my own business. And here's the thing, right? I mean, I got fired. If you
yeah,
don't communicate with your boss, you don't keep
yeah,
expectations clear, you don't work as hard as you can. Um, and I lost her trust. I lost, the opportunity. And so, yeah, that was avoiding conflict doesn't restore your relationship. And that was something I didn't realize. And, divorce is terrible, right? Because
yeah,
people are just like, yeah, let me just disconnect because I just don't want to
yeah,
deal with this difficulty.
yeah,
And so, yeah, same thing with the wake up call, though, right? My boss was not the supervisor who fired me, right? He wasn't afraid of conflict. He just pretty much told me, like everything he was upset with and how I disappointed him. And he just said, "Hey, today's your last day, you know, turn in
yeah,
your badge, get out." And I just was like, oh, what do all this shame and guilt and, embarrassment and self-loathing, right? Oh God, how could I lose this opportunity at this great company, right? And, for a couple of years, I was still feeling like a victim. I struggled to find gainful work, since then.
yeah,
And, I remember telling my friend about 7 years ago, I said, getting had to be one of the worst things that ever happened to
yeah,
me. But then he, my friend, I love him for this. And he
yeah,
pauses for a second. He goes, "Could you look at it as the best thing that ever happened to you?" And, I tell you, Dr. White, we don't exchange Christmas cards, right? We're not keeping in touch with each other. But
yeah,
I can admit now, it was the wake up call I needed to really say, you know what, whatever you're
yeah,
doing, it's not working. Like, you may not agree with our opinion, but it is in your best interest to learn from this and grow
yeah,
from this and improve, not just in saying words, but by
yeah,
demonstrating action. And yeah, it's kind of tough when I've had to fire people too that said the
yeah,
same things that I said before I got fired. And it's like,
yeah.
guys, I've been there. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I like that though because conflict. You're basically saying, hey, if you're having a conflict, it will help you to adjust,
Hmm.
to address
Hmm.
to deal with situations
Yeah.
before it escalates. And that's important. Jerry, this thing about
Yes.
relationships,
Mm-hmm.
is it the hardest thing to do in life? Be it, well, intimate relationship, more so than any other relationship. Why is it the hardest thing to do in life? Or do you think it's the hardest thing to do in life?
Uh, that's a great question, actually. In a way, it is,
Yeah.
and in a way, it isn't. And I say this, I'll elaborate on both because when you commit to something like marriage, right, when you see the entire person, right, you celebrate their good qualities and you accept them for their flaws, right, that is a very tough relationship. Like I don't know anyone that tells me marriage is easy. And
Yeah.
at the same time, though, but just because it isn't easy doesn't mean it isn't rewarding, right?
Yeah.
Things that are easy are rarely rewarding, right? Oh, I bowled a strike, yay, right? And then you're like, that's it. That's the extent of your reward. And so, in a way, yeah, to work day after day on this lifelong commitment is a lot of work. And at the same time, if you are someone who understands the value of integrity, and by integrity, I mean knowing how to earn trust, right? When you honor your promises, you are kind with your words, you have empathy, and you listen well without interrupting, right? Very rarely does someone like that have trouble building relationships, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think so some of the nuances that we just unpacked there, right? On one hand, if you know how to earn trust, it comes to you fairly easily, I think.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you are willing to take a more intimate relationship, that will be the hardest thing you would take on. And as trust in the reward that comes from committing to someone to that level.
All right. And gentlemen, say sorry. Apologize.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to do
And
that.
mean it.
We
Yeah.
have to do that. Hey, this is Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White, sitting in with Jerry Fu. We have a lot to talk about, and we're talking about his company as well. We'd like to get into that so that you can understand what Jerry is doing to help. But Jerry, before we go into all of that, differentiate the conflict in family, communities, and organization. You might have alluded to some elements of those before, but
Yeah, let's unpack this. No, this is a fun question. Let's do it. So yeah, families, right? It can be as simple as, hey, do your homework, right? Maybe the parents are living vicariously through the kids and they say, hey, my kid, I wasn't a pro athlete, but I want my kid to be, so I'm going to sign them up for all these youth programs. I'm going to make them learn how to, play musical instruments, right? That's what I dealt with.
right.
And right. So there's conflicts in, what the parents want for the kids and what the kids want for themselves, right?
Okay.
That's the main conflict, right? Sometimes it's a good conflict where, again, maybe the parents think, hey, let's challenge him a little bit. Let's get him outside their comfort zone, stretch him with a couple different activities. And the kids are like, nah, I just want to play video games. Okay, that's a bad conflict on the part of the kids. If you're just fighting to be lazy, that's a bad conflict, right? But if the parents are insisting, no, you need to be an accountant like me, if you are trying to shoehorn them into a specific profession, or to say, hey, you need to be married by 25 or something like that, right? Now that's also not healthy, but that's a conflict that you could probably expect for most parents, because your mom is always going to be your mom, right? That's
Definitely.
she's always going to have an opinion of how she thinks your life will be, especially if you get married. Oh, my daughter-in-law is not, pulling her weight. It's like, okay, that's no fun. Communities, right? Sometimes it can just be neighbors, right? I remember I had a neighbor, man, like he had this immaculate lawn and this immaculate garden, and he did not want anyone parking on the street in front of his house. And at one point, he actually brandished a shotgun because he was that upset with people not respecting his, quote, territory or property, even though the street's public property.
Right.
Right. And we just said, oh, this is all it takes, right? Or maybe carolers come by your house and you're like, I didn't want this noise. Like, you all aren't singing right. My car got egged at one point, like around Christmas time. Okay, there's conflict in community, right? Someone's kids are acting up, they're beating up on your kids. Great. Nope, this isn't the fun community, right? It's just hard. And then organizations, right? If you have like I'll give two examples of conflict organizations, one good, one bad. One,
Yeah.
the bad kind, right, is when people just don't care, right? They just they sign up for a job, they don't pull their weight, or even worse, they're volunteering and they say, well, what's the worst they can do? They're going to fire me. I don't care if I do this job, in first gear, or I just do kind of like halfway good. But a good conflict in organizations, though, right? I'll give an example. So there's a dental nonprofit that wanted to fix cleft palate, and they had a conflict between who their actual like customer was, right? Because on one hand, the volunteer dentists wanted to start to bring their families, kind of make it a vacation, or they wanted to bring another local dentist that they could apprentice under them. This organization said, no, that this is conflicting with what we believe it should be, because we want you to train the local dentists like in these third world countries so that they don't have to depend on us anymore. And so you might have a vision and conflict of vision, right, in your organization. So those are some of the conflicts you can see in each of those three categories.
Yeah. So you have absenteeism and you have presentism. You're there, but not working, not pulling your weight. Or you're not there at all in the workplace. You're home, absent. So the thing is that you can be at work. I'm just throwing that in. You can be at work and just not really present.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you could just kind of get by, and that might be enough to cause conflict with your boss. To be like, is your heart really in this? It's like, okay, maybe we pick something else for you.
Definitely, Jerry. We talked about conflict as it relates to you, self-conflict within. But in general, how do you describe this self-conflict in general? Just as you have explained, organizational, community, and familial conflict. Explain this self-conflict in general.
Yeah. I mean, a couple examples that we could kind of unpack, right? Do I pick my needs over the needs of the greater good, right? When a mom, like, this is a funny example that I saw in a late night talk show, right? This mom shared that she has 3 kids and there were only 2 ice cream sandwiches, right? And so she's like, I just ate them both because she's like, I don't want to deal with this conflict, right? So yeah, it's like, so one version of self-conflict is, okay, do I shave a little bit off the top? Do I, take one ream of paper from the company where I work because I know no one will miss it, right? Embezzlement in companies, embezzlement was terrible in the early 1900s until they came out with the cash register that self-locked after every transaction. All of a sudden, like, even if people had the conflict of trying to steal from the company, they couldn't, right? Because that's how you have to deal with that self-conflict in a way, right? I need to just engineer my environment in a way that doesn't allow me to even have this moral dilemma, right? So there's self-conflict is, like what do I want now versus what do I want most, right? Do I want the career that's going to be satisfying where I have a legacy, or am I going to just settle to play Candy Crush and binge on Netflix, right? I mean, there's self-conflict right there between the short game and the long game. Are you doing something to survive, or are you doing something to really elevate the people around you, right? Those are some of the examples of self-conflict that I'd say I know I've dealt with and I've seen other people deal with.
Interesting, Jerry. This is Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. I am Dr. Canute White talking to Jerry Fu. Jerry, you said something about engage in conflict. What are you saying? What are you really saying when you say
that? Avoidance is leaning away from it, right? Oh, too intense. They're upset with me. I'm just going to go hide. To engage it is to be able to say, wow, thank you for saying that. Well, that's a fairly strong statement. Are you willing to tell me more? Right. And so now you're engaged. Right? Because now, instead of trying to cut off the conversation or avoid contact, now you're actually stepping in and saying, hey, you know what? Clearly, this is important to you. All right, let me give you my full attention and effort, and let's see where this goes. Right? So actually learn what's actually going on as to why you're upset with me. So engage it. Using curiosity and realizing, hey, you know what? The best thing for me to do is not to run away from this, but actually show this person that I'm going to take them seriously.
So you face it. You face it.
Good job.
Yes, saying, that's the word. Once I'm facing it, once I'm there with you, I'm staying there, I'm sticking with it.
Mhm.
we're going to resolve it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I am committed to you. I'm committed to what you have to hearing what you have to say, and we're going to believe that we can come to a successful resolution. That one that you think Stephen Covey, right? Think win-win, right? Just don't think win-lose.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
think win-win. Yeah,
win-win, right. That's important, Yeah,
yeah,
that's important. But we're going to talk a bit about your company now, Jerry,
Mhm.
what you do. But I
Sure.
realize there are some statements that were made as it
Mhm.
relates to: do you want to respect your parents'
Mhm.
opinion
Mhm.
while still going your own way? Things like
Mhm.
that. So there are three things that I saw that I'd
Mhm.
like you to clarify for me. That's the first
Sure.
one.
Sure.
Um, what are you asking in terms of respect your parents' opinions while still um, going your own way? That's
Yeah.
conflicting to me, in
Mhm.
effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Talk to me.
yeah. No, it's a great point, right? Yeah, I put it up on my website. I better stand by it. So, I'll give the example of like Jimmy Yang, right? This comedian who, he talked about coming over from Hong Kong, being an outsider. He, didn't like the rat race that, so many other Asian kids were basically convincing themselves that would give them something meaningful in life, right? And his dad goes to the effort of getting him a consulting job at this firm that you have to have some kind of way in order to even get on their radar, right? And he
Yeah,
ended up quitting it because he said, I want to be an actor, I want to be a comedian, I want to have this
yeah,
different life. And his parents obviously weren't happy with him for that. And in his eyes, he just said, I'd rather disappoint my parents than for a couple years that I was supposed to disappoint myself the rest of my life, right? I'm the one that has to live with my decisions, not them, right? I shouldn't marry a girl just because my parents think she'd be good for me. There might be some good things
yeah,
about her,
yeah.
but if that's not my choice, right? Ultimately, it has to be mine. So I think respect comes from saying, "Hey, mom and dad, like, thank you for wanting good things for me," right? My mom wanted stability for me. She didn't want me to suffer. She didn't want me to go through needless difficulties. And so, in that regard, right, I can say this is how I'm going to honor my parents. I'm going to honor the intention. As why did they work so hard to make me good at math? Why did they work so hard to give me tough love and really make sure that I develop productive habits? And I'm going to apply this in a way that may not end up with the career that they think that I should have.
Right,
But I mean, as long as we agree, right, we learn to get what's essential here, mom and dad. You want me to be sure I'm able to pay my bills. You want me to be sure that I'm taking good care of myself, and so I'm going to do that. It might be in a different job than what you
right.
would prefer for me,
Mhm.
but hey, as long as I pay my bills, right, I'm going to ask that you can relax.
Interesting, Jerry. There are two more that I'd like to look at, and
Yeah,
then
go
we'll
for it.
try to curve it into your business,
Sure.
curve them into your business. This
Mhm.
one about um, have a strong relationship with your boss.
Ooh, I
We
love
might have
this one.
alluded to that earlier on, but
Yeah.
that's what's on your website as well. As well as
Yeah, no, let's unpack this. Let's really give people listening some value here. So,
yeah,
there's a great book called Start with Your People, and that chapter that he specifically has on your boss has a lot of great insights because your boss, whether fairly or not, has a lot of leverage, right? If
yeah,
you take good care of your boss, he's the one who opens doors and leverages his position to help elevate you, right? If you
right.
take good care of him. Another great book, It's Your Ship by Michael Abrashoff, talks
Okay,
about, hey, think like your boss, right? When you think like your boss, then you can start to anticipate his needs. You can start to anticipate the things, he needs you to take care of and take initiative for, right? Because yeah, we talked about building relationships.
you're right,
The one with your boss basically will dictate where you go in the company, right? Will your boss take you with him if he gets promoted, right? Then and in the process basically giving you a promotion. Is your boss going to give you a good recommendation if at some point you leave the company and you need something if you're going to school or you need to get another job, right? um, like getting along with your boss is one of the best things that you can invest in if you're going to
great.
have a career. Yeah.
Great, and I know we're going to tie this into your what you do function
Absolutely.
in your company. But the last one here I
Yeah.
have is do you want to feel okay about telling your friend about something he did that upset you? That was on your website. What are you saying?
Yeah, well, I'll give an example, right? So one of my friends I grew up with had this lovely habit of uh, pleasant non-committal answers, and I'll say this because he'll do something like this. I'll say, "Hey," I'll call him Frank. "Hey, Frank, we're going to a basketball game later. Do you want me to get you a ticket?" And he'll be like, "Oh, Jerry, that sounds great. I don't know yet, but maybe it'll work out. So yeah, like I'll think about it, right?" And so in my mind, right, I'm thinking, "Oh, I should get Frank a ticket because it sounds like he's going to make it." And then he doesn't show up, right? And then now it's like, and then I'll be like, "Frank, what happened, man?" He goes, "Oh, well, I didn't actually say I was going to go." And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, this isn't good. Right. And so, at one point I lost, I can't, I reached the end of my patience with Frank. And at some point I just said, "Hey, look, you're not going to hurt my feel. If you're afraid that you're going to hurt my feelings by saying no, that's not the case. Right. I would rather you tell me, hey, realistically, I don't think I'm going to make it. So don't worry about,
No.
getting me a ticket. But hey, let's maybe hang out again soon at another time, right?"
Yeah.
You could say that, and I would even though I'd be sad that you couldn't join me for this game, I would understand. Hey, like you're still a good friend. You cared enough to adjust expectations from the start, so I'm not wasting my time or my money for something that you didn't come through for, right?
Oh,
And
cool.
so to be able to give people the courage and to be open enough about that to say, "Hey, look, I'm not liking what I'm seeing you from right now, and as your friend, I want to address this so it doesn't cause problems later." Right? That was something I had to learn the hard way. Like I lost a lot of friendships because
Yeah.
I was just upset with them, and I just said, "Well, I don't know how to address this without making things worse, so I'm just going to stop." And that's
Yeah.
just a terrible reason to like lose a friend.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
agree with you, Jerry. And these three elements, they were on your website, as I had said,
Hmm.
for you perhaps to lure clients into your business, saying, "Hey, do you want this? Then come to
Yeah.
Jerry's business." So tell me now, Jerry, how do
Mhm.
what do you do to help them to gain these perspectives? Consider those three things that we talk about.
Yeah, I mean, the first, whether it's through coaching sessions, I can share literature with you, right? You can say, "Hey, read these 2 or 3 books if you just want that, and you don't have the money to hire a coach right now. Hey, here's some free resources. Go for it." But if you want, personalized attention to your situation, and to really plant a foundation so that you can kind of grow strong and stand on your own 2 feet and not have to pay me any more money. you know Basically, yeah, just hire me for like 2 or 3 sessions, right?
Yeah.
And so in these coaching sessions, right, you come to me with the situation, you set the agenda, right?
Okay.
I don't want to set the agenda for you because I don't want to just prescribe my idea of what you should have. You are the expert on your life, right? So come to me with a situation. Okay, I'll start to ask you questions. Hey, what's the story behind this challenge? Like, what are you telling yourself, right? Where are these fears coming from? Like, what are you afraid of, right? I'll ask you things about, hey, what is success? What would success be to you for this challenge, right? What is the benefit of that success? And then we say, okay, now that we know, why we want what we want, okay, what's your next action, right? Let's translate this into practical steps. How will you be sure that you've done enough to achieve the success you want for yourself, right? And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of questions, a lot of introspection, and ultimately the best solution for the clients is the ones that they come up with on their own with a little help.
Yeah, interesting. So hypothetically, I am company A, and I've been having, well, my employees have been having a lot of conflict and so on.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want Jerry to come in and these conflicts.
Mm.
What do I do? What's the first step?
Uh, you know, the first step is to get curious, right? If I had to kind of introduce the idea of a solution, or I would just take every employee, have a one-on-one with them, right? Listen to them. Hey, what do you see? What am I missing? Right. That's always a great question to ask. That gets people
Okay.
disarmed and more engaged to say, "Oh, wow, he wants my perspective," right? What am I missing? What do you think? What if you were in charge? How would you handle some of the
Okay,
problems that you're
right.
seeing, right?
With
And
that.
you introduce this idea of ownership, and to say, hey, like if this is your skin in the game, how would you handle things, right? What do you think is what are some ideas that you would want to us to consider in terms of making things better, right? And so once you've allowed like the introverts, this is why we do one-on-one and not group things first, because
Yeah.
in group settings, right, the introverts tend to stay quiet and let the louder voices drown theirs out or keep them quiet. So first one-on-one, and then as a group, you say, hey, so thank you for meeting with me one-on-one to get an idea of how we can handle these challenges in the company. Now we need the power of the group to really come up with solutions and build on each other's ideas so that we can design a company and culture that you guys are excited to come to work, and you guys are excited to work with each other to meet the common goals. So that's something I would suggest.
Yeah, I love that, Jerry, because you're basically putting the ball in the court of the
Mm-hmm.
employee, saying, "Hey, you are the boss now. What would you do?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to sort of give them a sort of perspective on, on the situation. Jerry, it's so good talking to you, though. And what I want you to tell us now is how we can contact you. I know that you have a website.
Yeah. Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn, but the website that has all the free goodies for you, www.adaptingleaders.com. So a couple things that you can check out there. I got a free PDF download on a framework to handle hard conversations. You can schedule a complimentary 30-minute call. It's worth at least $80. So, just try it for yourself, right? And then I got a free blog on useful and interesting leadership literature and other life hacks. So that's all available, no strings attached. If you want to hire me, or you think I'd be good for your organization dealing with some of the challenges, by all means, there's formal coaching packages we can talk about. But for right now, hey, enjoy the free stuff.
I love that, Jerry. I love that. Your website will be on the description of the episode. So those persons listening on their favorite podcast platform can go on the description and look for that link. You will find it really on the Jerry's
Mm-hmm.
website, full website, and
Yeah.
you can click on it and you get to Jerry's website and get the goodies,
Mm-hmm.
as Jerry had said. Right,
Yep.
those listening on your favorite podcast platform, you'll be able to see the link as well in the description.
Mm-hmm.
So get to Jerry. Jerry, any parting words, any final words?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think, guys, just I will say that failure is neither fatal nor final. Conflict resolution is a skill like any other, and if you're willing to put in the work, you can get better at it. If you want to put in the work to being a leader, you can get better at it. You don't have to be the best at it. Just work on getting better at it. Just for
Yeah,
today.
I love that, Jerry. I love that. Thank you for coming on Can Youth Exploration, your topic in a podcast. It was nice talking to you, Jerry. Wish you all the best.
Thanks, Dr. White.
Bye bye. So that was Jerry Fu. Jerry had said so much, and he has tips, as you have called them, for you to deal with your situations, right, in the family, in the communities, in organizations, so that we will be able to live a better life, live comfortable with each other. So find Jerry's website, talk with him, get him into your organization, get him into your community, and see how best you can resolve the conflict. Hey, we are still living in a pandemic. Really, it's too long, but it exists. And I want you to continue to wear your mask, continue to do the hygiene thing, I would call it. And the vaccine, I'm encouraging you to take it. I'm not forcing. I've done my two Pfizer, right? So go ahead and do the right thing and let us have a good life 2022. Thank you for listening. Can Youth Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Bye bye.